You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, episode 35. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Hey, and welcome back to the Tricorder Transmissions. We are your host, Jeff Hewlett.
And Craig Cohen.
We're back again for another week. We're going to be talking about the famous Doomsday Machine episode this week. And we have a special guest with us for this introduction, back to give us a bit of an update on his My Experience project. So welcome back to the show, Vernon Wilmer.
How you doing?
All right, how are you?
All right. Good to hear from you guys again.
Oh, it's very good to hear from you. We've been looking forward to speaking to you again for quite a while.
So I guess we can just start off by asking the question, what's been going on with My Experience lately?
Well, it's going through a re-edit. For a long time I was working on part 4, and the reason it was going so slow is because the way I do this had changed, and I was thinking about redoing 1, 2, and 3. Not like George Lucas redo, but actually making them tighter and easier to watch. And I decided when I got a full-time job again, which was a couple of years after Star Trek: The Experience, it started eating up all my time. So lately I've become kind of antisocial, and I'm devoting all of my free time to the series, and very successfully going through the first 3 episodes and re-editing them so they'll have a better quality for, I plan to offer them on disc through the Facebook site. That's kind of in the works. I don't have a solid plan yet, but that's definitely what's going to happen. And I might reoffer them again online through Vimeo if I can get that to work for the way I want to show it. But these will now be split up. Say each individual episode will have a first disc, which is the documentary episode, and then a bonus disc, which has a whole bunch of stuff that pertains to the episode, but I don't want it to eat up the episode's time.
Excellent.
And that was one of my first mistakes with the original edits of those first 3 episodes.
Very cool. So I had seen on the website that you had reshot some of your driving scenes.
Yeah. The opening of part 1, if anybody remembers, involves me driving to work during the opening title sequence. And that was actually shot in 2008 actually a couple of times, me driving to work. And when it came time to re-edit, I realized I hadn't saved the raw footage where I would have titling sequences over it in the final edit. So I actually had to recently mount the camera back on the vehicle and go driving again just to get those shots again because I really liked them. And it was kind of nostalgic driving along that old route to Star Trek: The Experience. Those came out nicely. They fit in with the original footage. And I've already had a comment. Someone was upset that, well, it's nice that you reshot that, but it's not really the same anymore because Star Trek: The Experience doesn't exist and you're not really going there. But that footage of the hotel and approaching it is still the original footage. The only thing I reshot was way out on the east end of town with me driving to work. It's the same desert. It hasn't changed.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. If you hadn't said anything, only probably the most astute viewer would have noticed that. I know I am very much looking forward to seeing the updated work when it's done. And the best way for people to get updates is via the Facebook page?
Yeah, absolutely. I put something up there about every week about it.
All right. We'll make sure to link to that in the show notes.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
As soon as I have a narration with a voice that I'm happy with, I will be putting the opening sequence of part 1 up there on the site just as an example of what the new quality of the series is going to look like.
Oh, excellent.
Cool. So, Vernon,
But I always hate my own voice.
We all do.
Yeah, we had that problem too when we first started doing this show. Since we have you here, I just two things just occurred to me that I want to ask you that just sprung into my mind. The first one is we had April on the show not long ago, and we had her give her perspective and story behind her part in the Star Trek magazine article. We didn't really get your side of it because you're in there too. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was exciting. The editor, his name escapes me at the moment. Nice guy over in the UK, contacted us about a retrospective piece on the experience. I believe it's Star Trek Magazine issue 48. We missed issue 47 by one, unfortunately. I went ahead and offered, he just had a few questions and wanted some pictures. I gave the poor guy a whole 5,000 word, only half of my interview appears in the magazine, but I was very happy to see all my pictures splashed through there. The part of the article he left in was me basically talking like a giddy fan. Oh, this place is so cool. It has this and it does this. But the second half of my article was left out, not only for length, but also it was the negative half. It's what went wrong, why it closed, how much we miss it, that sort of thing. So it turned out okay. I think his name was Chris Cooper. I want to say Chris Cooper.
That sounds right. I don't have the magazine handy. And you did, I don't know if it was on your personal page or on the experience page, you did post the complete unedited copy that you had sent in.
Yeah, it should still be up there.
All right. Yeah, we'll try and find that as well so people can read that if they're interested.
It's attached to the scans of the article I posted on the site.
All right, perfect.
And the other question, and this is a very recent thing, actually as recent as yesterday, your April Fool's joke on Facebook. How well did that go over?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't get the response I expected. Only a handful of people responded to it and were like, oh, yeah, sure, April Fool's, Vernon. But actually, I had 36 people leave the site, so they fell for it. I'm working on getting them back. And it has opened yet another time. It has opened a JJ versus canon debate on the page, which I try to avoid because I like having all the people, the fans who are liking the page and reading the material. I like having them on there, and I try to downplay the dislike for the JJ universe as much as possible because it puts some of them off.
Yeah.
They are in the minority, but, still, I like to keep everybody happy on that page.
Yeah, and my take on it is, and this is any time that anything gets sort of reimagined, rebooted, whatever you want to call it. In my opinion, anything that puts eyes on the original product is a good thing. Like when the Three Stooges movie came out, there were people complaining about that. And you know what? I was like, you know what? If a handful of 20-year-olds go out and watch those classic Stooge shorts and enjoy them, then that movie did its job.
I agree. In fact, I've seen examples of it. I work at the Venetian, and there's a lot of kids in their 20s that work there, and they talk about how they went to go see the Star Trek movie. They know I used to be an actor at Star Trek The Experience, so they tell me about it. And they're like, so yeah, I went to Netflix and started watching all the old episodes. By the way, Vernon, what order should I watch Star Trek in? And I've given them the whole list of 700 episodes in the order they should watch them in. So that is working in that sense.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, that's a really great thing. So that was kind of the same stance that I took with it. I mean, I'm not quite as critical of the JJ movies, but I look at them kind of the same way Craig does, where I would rather them do what they're doing than not do any more Star Trek at all. So it's a kind of a tightrope walk for me.
Yeah, that sounds about right. At least Star Trek is still current and relevant, regardless of the form that it's currently in.
Yep. Exactly. And, there are a couple of things about it that I do like. I think that Kinto does a pretty good Spock. So that's one of the highlights for me. There's some lowlights there, but I don't want to get into the negative at this point.
Oh, yeah. And I won't. But I think that cast is great. They all do their parts well.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is not, writer-director proof, but they're all playing those parts like we've never seen them before, which is, I believe, 10 or 12 years younger than we're supposed to see them in the original series.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
probably.
kind of in anything goes. They can make it up as they go, playing the characters at the age that we haven't seen them.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I hadn't really thought of it that way before.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that they even started to fall into with the later Next Generation movies, where they started delivering movies that they thought audiences wanted to see, as opposed to movies that really should have hit the beats that Star Trek should be hitting.
Yeah, that's the mode they seem to be in.
You know, action, big budget action movies, where if you look at, you know, the original series movies and even the early Next Gen movies, those all had more of a Star Trek pace, if you will.
Absolutely.
So, Vernon, do you have anything else that you want to add about the My Experience, or anything else you want to plug while you're here?
Only that I'm working on it as fast as I can. My full-time job, which is really absorbs a lot of my life because I'm becoming very integral in that company, eats up a lot of my time, and I'm very tired. But I want everyone to know that I've sacrificed basically my social life and all my free time to do nothing but work on this series and try to kick it out as quick as I can. And that I appreciate everybody's interest in it, because it's the only thing I can do to preserve what the place was and tell my story about it, and just relay my excitement about it.
Yeah, well, I know we're very, very excited to see the updated videos, and those are the episodes that you would put up. I watched quite a few times, and I know there was a lot of people out there that are have very fond memories of the experience, and you know, rightfully so. It was a real special place, and we're glad we were able to experience it a couple of times, and we were so glad we were able to connect with you in April and get a little bit more of the story.
It was absolutely our pleasure.
You know, I can totally relate to you forsaking your social life to do creative things, and I totally understand, but I'm hoping that it's not so sacrificed that we don't see you at the convention this summer.
I can't miss the convention. That's,
awesome.
You know, my pre-experience days, Star Trek conventions for me were like the same for anybody else. Just go there and bask in the Star Trek goodness and meet the people. Nowadays, for me, it's absolutely necessary pilgrimage. I have to go there to see my colleagues, my friends, even fans. I had people asking for autographs last year. That was incredible.
That's
beautiful.
Awesome.
And I believe this year, if April is correct, we're speaking on a panel again.
She had mentioned that.
I think we did that in 2010, 2009 or 10.
That's
and
awesome.
We'll be doing that again.
Yeah, we can't wait to. We're actually going. This will be our first year going, so the Tricorder Transmissions crew will be at the convention. So the button has been pressed, the pod has been jettisoned, and we're committed. So we're going to be
I hope
there.
You guys are up for some drinks.
Oh,
we
definitely.
Already marked out some room on the calendar. You know, penciled in. It says Vernon time,
which implies alcohol. So yes, that sounds like a plan.
Very much looking forward to that. So that was great. Thanks again, Vernon, for that update on My Experience. We're really looking forward to seeing what comes out next. Craig, are you ready to run through our air dates and plot synopsis?
Yes, sir.
All right. So the episode first aired on October 20th of 1967, and a remaster was released on February 10th of 2007.
And here I have a bit from the NBC press release that was issued on September 22nd, 1967. A strange device that is programmed to destroy every planet in the galaxy also threatens the Enterprise in the Doomsday Machine on NBC television network Star Trek Colorcast of Friday, October 20th.
Very excellent. So we are going to start our scene-specific commentary, as always, in 3, 2, 1.
So a little bit of a different opening than we're used to.
Yeah, and the flyby is really long in this one.
Yeah, well, and I'm so used to, it feels like the last couple episodes they've been flying by a planet.
Yeah, this is more of a just, how crowded is this bridge?
Yeah, and there's a noticeable difference.
Yeah, big time.
Here we have, what is that, Lieutenant Palmer?
Yeah, Lieutenant Palmer, so no Uhura. And how often do you see security guards posted on the bridge by the turbo lift like that?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this was when like they were like experimenting with making the bridge like an after hours club or something.
Yeah, really. And no Chekhov.
Yeah.
So some other dude. And Kirk in the dress shirt again.
Yeah. That
Very
seemed to be
interesting choices going on here.
season 2 wardrobe choice, I guess.
Yeah, more differentiation for Kirk. I guess since they have so many people on the bridge, you kind of have them stand out a little more.
Yeah. So I love this sort of this cold open where they're flying through a portion of space that has a ton of asteroids or space debris.
Yeah, lots of chunks of rock. Almost reminds you of the Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
A little bit there. System L374. And look at this. Kirk in the front of the bridge walking past the view screen.
Yeah, that was kind of something that's probably a first.
You never see that. That's really rare.
Yeah. And this is director Mark Daniels, who directed about 15 episodes of the series, and we've talked about him a lot. And we'll see him. We last saw his work on Mirror Mirror, and he'll be coming up on I, Mud. So I'd imagine that he was probably getting bored of the normal shots they had been doing.
Yeah,
was looking for ways to amuse himself.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So a lot of remastered effects in this episode. You're watching the remastered version. It's very, very, very different.
Yeah, I'd imagine that the folks that worked on this were either looking forward to this episode or having nightmares about it.
I would bet they were looking forward to it. This is highly regarded as one of the best Trek episodes. I bet you they couldn't wait to get their hands on this one.
Yeah. And here we get the constellation.
Yeah, it's 1017.
Yeah,
is the number.
And this is one of my favorite remastered effects thus far. Is when we really get that close up detail of the constellation. Yeah,
you get a few shots of it as well. So there'll be quite a few points during the episode where you're going to see, shots of how it's got the one broken nacelle and the bridge is kind of smashed, and you see some of the under construction girders and steel that are underneath there. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. So we talked about the Uhura replacement this episode, Lieutenant Palmer. And real quick, that is actress Elizabeth Rogers, who died in 2004 at the age of 70. Oh. She'll also be seen on The Way to Eden, and we're going to hear her voice as the voice of the companion on Metamorphosis.
Oh, very cool.
And she was also on Little House on the Prairie, Bewitched, Bonanza, and two big movies in the 70s, The Poseidon Adventure and The Towering Inferno.
Oh, very, very neat.
Yeah.
Always love to hear those connections.
Yeah, it is neat to see what people did when they weren't doing Trek. Yeah. But and she'll pop up on this series as Lieutenant Palmer again. So I guess she was Uhura's understudy.
Yeah, probably while Uhura was being retrained.
Yeah. So here's that some of that great Constellation.
Oh yeah, neat stuff.
Remastered work.
Yeah. Did you notice that the computer voice that was announcing the Red Alert Man Your Battle Stations was not the typical computer voice? It wasn't the Majel Barrett computer voice.
Oh, I did not catch that.
Yeah, it was another female voice.
Wow.
Yeah, it didn't sound at all like the one that we're used to.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and listen for that.
Yeah, interesting stuff. So I like how Spock is talking about all the stuff that's on the constellation that's down, and he mentions the power plants. All of the power plants are out. Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard them referred to as power plants before. Because we had, dilithium crystals, or lithium crystals have been introduced before. So it's interesting to hear that he doesn't actually refer to the lithium crystals being depleted or something like that we were used to hearing about in other episodes and other series. It's more mentions power plants instead.
Yeah. Oh, make sure you don't jettison pod.
Yeah, that was real close. He pressed that unlabeled fifth button there.
Yeah. The all-purpose button.
Yeah, this is the one he presses when he just wants to press something. Yeah. So they're gonna board what's remains of the constellation. So the bridge is uninhabitable, but the rest of the ship. I like that shot. That's a pretty neat remastered shot there. Now check out the diversity of shirt colors on this away team.
Wow, it's like a bag of Skittles.
Yeah, 1 red shirt, 2 yellows, 2 blues, and Kirk in his green dress shirt.
Yeah.
So they didn't beam over anybody who is going to die on the ship. So Scotty's the only red shirt, and he's not going to die in this episode. So we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, you know, that's good. We can.
Look, they all climb down that triangular shaped ladder at the same time.
Yeah.
So this is kind of neat because you're seeing a lot of darkened set pieces that we've seen in other places. So we obviously got the Enterprise engineering section complete with reused Horta eggs.
Yeah.
But it's darkened, so we're not seeing the same lighting. Got some wiring hanging down. There's a pipe out in the hallway here behind Kirk and McCoy, I guess, to simulate some extreme amounts of damage.
Yeah.
That were done. I love those Horta eggs. There's 3 of them there. One's kind of precariously perched on top of that thing, and then there's a couple on the sides.
Yeah, that's really neat. That's a detail that I didn't notice right away.
Yeah, interesting. So apparently we're not finding anybody yet.
Yeah, which is very odd because a ship that size with a crew comparable to the Enterprise, you'd have a couple hundred people.
Yeah, so at least I think Decker later says something in the neighborhood of 400 and some odd, just like the Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
So quite a few people. So pretty interesting stuff. Yep. So Scotty has already checked out the engines.
Yeah, the warp drive is a hopeless pile of junk.
Yes, but we do have impulse engines that may be useful.
Yeah.
So, and now we just heard the name Matt Decker.
Yeah, and Kirk is really, really skeptical that Decker would have left his post.
And I think this is before they introduced the concept of escape pods.
Yeah.
So I guess we don't, the old Enterprise, the TOS Enterprise and the Constellation didn't have escape pods like the newer Enterprises seem to have.
Yeah, all they had is the shuttlecraft, and that holds 6 or 8 people.
Yeah, tops. So look at this. Decker is kind of out of it, and McCoy always has his happy spray.
Yeah.
Always got the hypo happy juice there ready, and it pumps him up and kind of brings him back to life. He's unshaven, disheveled. So who long he's been laying there for a while, probably letting that 5 o'clock shadow grow in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So immediately recognizes Kirk though.
Yeah.
So we have a history here.
Yeah, and I like the way that Kirk interacted with him because it showed that, there is some kind of relationship there.
Yeah, but look how fast he gets frustrated with him.
Yeah.
Like, Matt, he's shaking him. He's in a state of shock.
Yeah, Kirk doesn't really have patience when it comes to stuff like this. This is really a job for a guy like Spock.
Yeah, kind of, but it's strange. Kirk stays perfectly calm when Kodos the Executioner is around.
Yeah.
But gives Decker about 10 seconds to answer a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's a friend of his. Yeah. So hearing a little replay of Decker's captain's log here. So seems like we've got pull the micro tapes.
Yeah.
Micro tapes. So we have confirmation that they still are tapes of some sort.
Yeah. And we're also learning that there were 4 planets in this system, and Kirk is saying that there's only 2 now.
Yeah. So now we find out that Decker beamed the crew down.
Oh, man.
Oh, so that doesn't bode well.
No, he beamed them basically to
their deaths.
To their death, which is oof. And that's another one of the things I really like about this episode is it shows the effect that the loss of an entire vessel can have on the captain.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's really taken its toll.
Yeah, well, it really illustrates the fact that these guys are responsible for every person on board.
Yeah.
And we've talked about the weight of that and the weight of being captain. But this episode really illustrates that ultimate weight of, how somebody would deal with losing everyone and feeling like they are 100% responsible for it.
Yeah, and he's really doing a good job.
Yeah, this is some great acting here.
Yeah.
There's some great makeup, some great acting.
Absolutely.
Just overall a really, really powerful scene.
Yeah, very. And, it's funny that Kirk seems to assume that Decker doesn't know that those people on the third planet are dead because the planet itself is gone, but he sure knows.
Yeah.
And he's having a really tough time with it. As imagine, Kirk, I'm sure, would have that kind of a reaction if he lost his entire crew. Due to a choice that he made.
Yeah.
That's pretty tough.
Yeah, and that's actor William Wyndon playing Decker, and he died in 2012 at the age of 88.
Wow.
He was on 2 episodes of The Twilight Zone, and he had a long run of 49 episodes as Dr. Seth Hazlitt on Murder, She Wrote. And in addition to that character, he had one recurring appearance where he played a lawyer. So if you're a Murder, She Wrote fan, you can look for him.
I did enjoy that show from time to time.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
And now here we are getting the first description of this planet eater.
Yeah, miles long. Miles long, Decker states. So we're going to get a little bit of a description here as to how it destroys planets, too. He said it was slicing pieces of a planet off with a force beam made of pure antiproton.
Wow.
So a little scientific stuff there that may be beyond our comprehension.
Yeah. And this was an episode for me when I remember the first time I saw it, it really sort of opened up the Star Trek universe for me in terms of the forces that were out there that weren't like godlike like we're used to seeing, but there were, the potential for these physical objects to just basically cut through space and destroy anything in their way. It was kind of an eye opener for me because we had seen so many, figures that weren't very physically imposing, and then we come into this Doomsday Machine.
Yeah,
and it really kind of seemed like a little bit of a game changer.
Yeah, very much. I think Decker summed it up pretty well with the they say there's no devil, but this comes straight out of hell.
Yeah.
Quote. Interesting he mentions hell, though.
Yeah, well, I guess, in the 23rd century.
Still out there.
Yeah.
So Spock has laid out the scenario, by the way, about this being a robot that powers itself based on, consuming planets. And it coming from another galaxy, from outside the galaxy. And Sulu has projected that it is headed for the most densely populated part of our galaxy. So we've set up some pretty dire stakes.
Yeah.
Here. But now Kirk is going to pontificate that this is a doomsday machine.
Yeah, yeah. And then we're getting the start of the ticking clock, which... some of the best Star Trek episodes have that ticking clock.
Yeah, that's one of the great dramatic tools.
Yeah,
used in a lot of these episodes.
Yeah, I should amend that and say a ticking clock that has some legitimate, timing attached to it, meaning that there is when that clock hits its time, it's bad news.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of the other episodes, it's a little bit of a softer ticking clock.
Yeah, this is a pretty hard ticking clock. And another piece of dialogue that links this episode back to the time when it was actually written in the 60s is Kirk likened the Doomsday Machine to the old H-bomb.
Yeah.
So, kind of trying to give the people watching the show back then a recent historical reference as to what this thing is in Star Trek terms.
Yeah.
So what back then was the ultimate weapon. This thing is also an ultimate weapon. And by the way, we also slipped in a McCoy, I'm a doctor, not a mechanic line in there.
Yes.
So we got another one of those.
Yeah, and they beam back to the Enterprise to an instant red alert.
Yeah, there's some, and another thing, there's a lot of points in this episode that I think have fantastic, fantastic musical cues, score cues. We heard one with the last fade to commercial as the, it's pretty neat that it's pursuing. We're going to hear it right now, actually. And it's turning to pursue the Enterprise. We're getting a lot of dramatic looks and you get some really great music there, and that's going to be where they're going to leave you hanging until you come back from the Clorox commercial. So pretty cool. You didn't realize that they could tow another ship like that. There must be some kind of a tractor beam type thing.
Yeah.
Where they're towing the Constellation behind. Nice shot of the maw of the Doomsday Machine there as well.
Yeah. So the music for this episode was done by composer Saul Kaplan. And he said about this episode, to score any film well is a great challenge for Star Trek. In addition to creating the right musical motifs and moods, a composer would have to create musical sounds yet always make the audience believe that what they were seeing and hearing could be happening for real. The score must fuse with all other creative and cinematic elements to make the film an artistic entity.
Wow.
So it seems like Kaplan took a very methodical approach to creating the music.
That's an excellent quote. I think it fits perfectly with this episode. I feel like the score really organically fits in with everything that's going on. Great moments of building tension. There's one really great one that I'll mention coming up later on that I think is really, really effective. But it's pretty... Whoa! Check out that laser beam action.
Yes.
So we didn't know that it had any kind of a laser beam that it could use to attack, or maybe that's that anti-proton beam that it uses to cut the planet. Look at that is a crowded bridge.
Oh yeah.
Look how many people are there. That's
that
incredible.
quote, by the way, was from a book called The Music of Star Trek from 1999.
Oh, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And
I just want to make sure I give my source.
Nice plug. And of course, as always, the transporter is knocked out.
Mm-hmm.
So no coming back for Kirk, Scotty, and the damage control team, the quote unquote damage control team, right?
Yeah.
So
and this is going to create a very, very interesting situation later on in the episode.
Yeah, and I love how they've set this up where the Constellation is completely powerless at this point, and they have to rely on the genius of Scotty.
Yeah.
To get them out. So he's got to resurrect the engines. He's got to resurrect the phaser banks. And this other guy in the background here has to get Washburn has to get the view screen back online so Kirk can just see what's going on. And Kirk is visibly frustrated that he can't see anything.
And the interesting thing from Scotty's perspective is Scotty is going to be working on a ship that isn't his.
Right.
The Constellation feasibly belonged to another engineer.
Right.
And I'm sure each engineer had their own little style or way of repairing things.
Yeah, so he doesn't know how jury rigged it was.
Yeah.
But he can improvise.
Yeah.
And
he doesn't even have prints that he can reference because I assume they're all on the onboard computer.
Yeah, I imagine so. Check out the wrist decorations on Decker's shirt.
Oh, okay.
So he's got quite a... since he's a higher rank than everyone else, he's kind of more ornate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they, at least in continuity-wise, they remembered to do that. And he's got a different insignia on his shirt as well.
Yeah.
So are we to believe that insignia is the insignia for his own ship? And the ones that we see on Spock's shirt are the Enterprise ones? Or is it just a matter of rank? He's higher rank, so he wears a completely different insignia, I wonder.
Yeah, that's a good question. And depending on the answer, if your first theory is correct, they've sort of retconned that over the years because that is clearly like the universal Star Trek symbol now.
Yes, it is. And Decker is exerting his rank.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have a little back and forth between him and Spock here. I really, really love this interplay between the two. And this overall scene here is really, really effective. One of my favorite parts of this entire episode with this kind of struggle for command, this back and forth.
Yeah.
Because you've got Decker, who is, you can kind of tell he's half unhinged at this point, and he's kind of got this harebrained idea in his head that, you know what, listen, I can pull rank on these guys. Yeah. I think I can make right what I did wrong before.
Oh yeah, this is sort of like he's going into like Captain Ahab territory.
Oh, big time. Big time. And Spock is totally calling him out on it too. He said last time, you got a wrecked ship and a dead crew. I mean, totally tearing the guy down. And now he's, Decker's going to rationalize it, like saying, well, last time I didn't do it right. I learned from my mistakes, and, I'm going to go in and just completely, point blank. Oh, yeah. So really great stuff. And he's actually threatening to relieve Spock of duty. That's pretty heavy stuff, man.
Stone cold.
Yeah, and Spock lets him go. And here we go. Part 2 of this incredible scene, enter McCoy. And he goes right back at Decker, tells him he's out of line, and McCoy turns around and says, "So are you." It's great. And this is really cool because, Spock is stating Starfleet regulations from memory.
Yeah.
This episode is very heavy on quoting regulation, which we don't really hear a lot of before this. We've heard some, but Spock is citing specific sections, and look how quick McCoy was about to turn on. He's gonna give him a poor medical report without even examining him first, until Spock told him he's got to have some sort of actual hard evidence to turn in.
Yeah. But I think this is a situation where if you didn't have somebody like Spock, this episode would have turned out very differently.
Oh, for sure. Spock and Scotty in this situation.
Yeah. But Spock really having the ability to push back against Decker here. Yeah.
And I got to say, that's a fantastic McCoy moment as well. I mean, you really see that third arm of the Trinity, the raw emotional reaction. I mean, he's kind of pleading with Spock to do something because he knows that Decker's going to just destroy everything.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at Decker's posture here, it's definitely not official.
No, not at all.
And that should really be worrisome to anybody on the bridge there.
Yeah, and that musical cue they used, it's like that villain music as Decker's spinning around in the chair surveying the bridge. That was really, really effective. Fantastic bit of score there. Kind of setting Decker up as a villain character.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course the great directorial choice of having Decker kind of slumped in the chair sort of casually.
Yeah.
Almost as if he's not taking it completely seriously.
Yeah. He's
Cocky.
not giving the captain's chair the respect that it deseres.
No, he's like, yeah, listen, I got my do-over, man. I'm just gonna fiddle around with these tapes.
Yeah.
They kind of changed the shape of the machine itself a little bit in the remaster, didn't they? I mean, it comes to a point now.
Yeah, I think that was probably a limitation of whatever model work they were doing in the 60s.
Yeah. So I think they did a really great job on the outer hull of it, though. It looks really cool.
Yeah. It looks kind of slick. It almost looks a little bit more like mechanical in this episode, in the remaster.
Yeah, in the original, it looked kind of crystalline almost.
Yeah.
Didn't it? Like it was almost made of rock.
Yeah.
Or something. So yeah, this looks more like a metal. But that kind of goes a little bit better with, now what is this crazy tool that Scotty's pulling out of that hatch?
Yeah.
I don't know what the heck that thing is.
Yeah, but it does go more in line with the, part robotic nature of it.
True. There's another weird tool. Kirk's got two strange looking tools in his hands. I mean, what is interesting props they pulled out for this?
Yeah, I guess when you write stuff like that in the script, like they fix something.
Yeah, he's got to be holding some sort of a tool.
I wonder how much detail, is in place in the script there.
Yeah.
So we're hearing it now. We're going to have a phaser attack.
Yeah, and this is a question that I had about this episode is you would think that they would try firing some photon torpedoes right into the thing's mouth. Instead they just kind of try to phaser the outside of it, which I thought was a little bit odd. I mean, but I guess it was a choice that was made, a writing choice, but really cool shot there of the over the top of the ship looking down the thing's mouth.
Yeah. And I like how they sort of kept that Enterprise perspective that you saw in a lot of the original effects where you'd be sort of directly behind and above the Enterprise.
Yeah, almost like you were riding on top of it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. But I like the fact that they sort of kept that feel.
Yep. We've got the view screen is coming back online. And Kirk, I love the dramatic lighting on Kirk. In so much of this episode, they've got that strip of brighter light over his eyes, and the rest of him is sort of in a little bit of a shadow.
Yeah.
So I love these enhanced effects of the ship actually fighting in space. I love the shots of the ship flying around the Doomsday Machine and firing the phasers. I think it adds a lot without spoiling the feel of the show.
Oh yeah, totally. And the phaser shots even look like they're actually coming from the ship.
Yeah.
You know, where you, like you said, you always believed it, but this just sells it a little bit more.
Yeah, it really helps to see the ship kind of flying on an angle over top of the Doomsday Machine and firing. It just kind of gives it more of a modern feel, but, you know, without taking you out of the, you know, this is a show that was made in the 60s vibe.
Yeah,
Look at that dramatic lighting again. I love the use of lighting on this show.
Yeah, it is really great to go through this series and see the stuff that was in place that was utilized over and over again that sort of created the visual style of the show.
Yeah, it's a huge part of the style for me. It really helps to accentuate the drama with the use of lighting. So you've got great lighting, you've got great musical cues, you know, and coupled with writing and the acting and the people that they chose to play these roles. I think that's kind of why it has lasted so long.
Yeah.
It's been so enduring. I can still watch this today and not feel like I'm watching something that's, you know, 40 plus years old, you know?
Oh, totally. And speaking of writing, this episode was another episode that was written by a famous science fiction author. This one written by Norman Spinrad, who in 1969 wrote sort of a precursor to the cyberpunk novels of the early 80s called Bugjack Baron. And he also wrote some other TV stuff, including an episode of Land of the Lost called Tag Team. And a little bit of trivia, Spinrad was the first author to electronically deliver a manuscript to his publisher.
Oh, wow.
In the 1990s.
Very cool.
Yeah, he was the first one to transmit a manuscript via email as opposed to, I guess, fax.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, pretty neat.
Nice little tech tidbits.
Yeah.
So another interesting bit of trivia about this episode that I thought was pretty cool, you know, going back to your, you know, linking actors and actresses to other shows, this episode actually features 6 people who've been on Twilight Zone episodes.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Shatner, Nimoy, Doohan, Takei, Wyndham, and Jerry Catron.
Excellent.
Yeah, pretty cool. I love these connections with other series.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Very cool. So Scotty worked a miracle. Now I love Kirk is getting to this flying position to get the ship to move. More great camera tilt stuff too. I love how well they pull off the camera tilt stuff. It really looks like they're having trouble standing up. Wonder how many takes they had to do to get that stuff right.
Yeah, you'd wonder.
Because it really looks, I mean, they're tilting the camera and Scotty's kind of holding on to the wall there, and he really looks like he's having trouble holding on.
Yeah, you'd think that if they did this, you know, if they had maybe a bigger budget, they would have used a gimbal of some kind to actually rotate the set. But yeah, looks like they definitely did it a poor man's process. Very cool, though.
Yeah, Kirk is now watching his ship being pulled into the Doomsday Machine. So you got to imagine the frustration for Kirk.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's his ship and somebody is not caring for it well.
No, not at all. And this is a damn brave move for Kirk to take this dilapidated dead ship and use it to try to distract the Doomsday Machine, knowing full well there's nothing he can do to escape. He's just trying to buy some time for the Enterprise at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty amazing. And of course, Scotty's got a bank of phasers, and there's Kirk saying Scotty's earned his pay for the week.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many times we've heard people, you know, earning their pay referenced over the course of all the episodes we watched so far.
Yeah, and of course, because Star Trek doesn't really talk about money.
Yeah, especially as the series goes on, yeah.
Well, and they've been successful. I love how the Enterprise looked like it was dead.
Oh,
And
totally.
kind of turned and started to fly off. Another really cool remastered effect. So much good stuff in this remaster. And of course, now Decker's going to go off the rails again and start firing phasers at the machine again. After they just did absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And it really shows his complete disconnect and, his need or desire for vengeance more than anything else.
Yeah. And at least he ordered them to move away and get some distance. So Spock's going to get a rundown here of warp drives and deflect out for a solar day.
Yeah.
I love the references a solar day, not just a day, but a solar day.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know what a solar day is.
Yeah.
Is it longer than a regular day, shorter than a regular day? What exactly is it?
Mm-hmm.
And you got another ticking time bomb there.
Yeah, and Spock's making reference to the fact that the Enterprise does not have unlimited power, whereas this Doomsday Machine will just keep on coming.
Yep. So we have about 7 hours of power left before they exhaust their fuel, and the Doomsday Machine has a seemingly unlimited power. But we've got ship-to-ship communications back, so Kirk is about to find out what we, the audience, already know, that Decker is the one calling the shots. So you have to wonder what was going through Kirk's mind. Did Kirk think that Spock was doing all of that?
Yeah, but it had to be a real head-scratcher for him because it all seems completely outside of Spock's sort of logical approach.
Absolutely. And Decker is bad-mouthing Spock there. So your first officer is unwilling to take aggressive action.
Yeah.
So I had to step in.
And Kirk rightfully calls Decker a lunatic.
Yeah, and he tries to go right past me. He's like, put Spock on the phone.
Yeah.
Put Spock on. I love how Kirk is telling off a superior officer.
Yeah, and that is a great sort of character moment. And we've seen sort of, let's push back at authority, tendency in Kirk. But here he's really putting the needs of his ship and his crew before any kind of, chain of command. Exactly.
So he does not care one thing about his own career.
Yeah.
He's willing to put everything on the line, and he's actually going to order, and this I think is really cool. Kirk is ordering Spock to relieve Decker without the authority to do it, and Spock is going to do it.
Yeah.
I love it. This is the loyalty of Spock to Kirk. Spock is also willing to throw his career down the toilet.
Yeah.
To follow Kirk's orders.
Mm-hmm. But you'd have to imagine that in the back of his mind, Spock's got the idea that there would be a logical argument.
Oh, absolutely.
Against any kind of court-martial that may be happening. And here we basically see Decker tries to bluff them out, and he gets called out.
Oh, absolutely. And Spock is called. Now we know why the security guards were there. So they could call him in on Decker. And here's the famous line, Vulcans never bluff. Fantastic. I love it. So, and here's another great use of music as well. As Spock retakes the chair from Decker, you've got kind of this heroic cue. To kind of give you that good feeling of, all is right with the world once again. And this crazy guy who's threatening our ship and our friends.
Yeah.
Has been taken out of command. And now Spock's gonna one more shot. He's gonna send him down to McCoy to get his medical evaluation. So assuming that Commodore Decker had gotten down there, I'm sure that McCoy's medical opinion would have been that he was pretty unhinged and unfit for command. So there goes the court-martial right there.
Yeah.
So Spock doing a little CYA.
Yeah. And it's got to be tough to be Sulu in situations like the one that he just went through, where he was seemingly getting orders from two different people at points.
Yeah, and he's kind of trying to pick who he needs to obey.
Yeah. So,
his loyalty to Spock and Kirk. What a great fight scene.
Yeah.
Here.
There's some good stuff going here. The double axe handle seems to be a Starfleet, basic Starfleet training move.
Oh, totally. And I love these stances that they're doing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like posturing kata type martial arts stances.
Yeah, it seems really advanced for the time that this was made.
Definitely. I wonder if there's any notes anywhere about the choreography of these fight scenes. I don't recall ever reading any.
Yeah.
Somebody had to do all of the choreography for those, or unless the director just kind of said do a couple things that look like fighting.
Yeah, well, you did have stunt performers like Bobby Clark, who played the Gorn.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd imagine those guys probably had some kind of input.
Yeah, more than likely, it would rely on people who were, I guess, the experts. Oh, there's a little sign, the shuttlecraft hangar deck. I don't know
Yeah.
if we've ever seen that sign before.
No, it's very cool.
So now I guess we know where Decker's heading. He's heading towards the hangar deck to grab himself a shuttlecraft. And there's some more great shots of the constellation with the destroyed in the cell. I think it's really neat how they did that. So in the original episode, in the original version of it before they remastered it, it was actually an Enterprise plastic model that they had burned. So pretty neat stuff.
Yeah. And here in the remaster, it kind of reminds me of like the incomplete Death Star in Star Wars.
Oh, good call.
Like that same kind of look.
Definitely a good call.
Which is always one of my favorite sort of images in the Star Trek universe or the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, that was pretty neat because when you saw the original Star Wars and you saw the complete Death Star, that was always kind of neat. I always wondered how they built something like that.
Yeah.
This big giant planet-sized or moon-sized base. And then when you saw in Return of the Jedi that it's kind of like 3/4 complete or 2/3 complete. It was kind of a neat...
Yeah.
Oh, here's some great shots of the shuttlecraft leaving the dock.
And this is the first shuttlecraft we're seeing in quite a while.
Yeah.
Definitely the first shuttlecraft appearance of season 2.
Yep, definitely. And they did a really good job of it, too.
Yeah, or at least in, air date order.
Right. Yeah, we always have to make sure that we keep referencing the fact that it's air date order.
Yeah, because I didn't realize that this season, just as much as season 1, they really played around with the, air date order versus production order.
They certainly did.
Yeah.
They certainly did. Quite a bit different. And so we found out Commodore Decker has stolen the shuttlecraft, and they're going to try to talk him out of this, but his idea may seem crackpot and crazy, suiciding into the maw of the Doomsday Machine, but as we'll find out, it's actually quite a brilliant idea.
Mm.
But here's the time in the episode where we're going to get the Kirk inspirational speech. So we always seem to get them.
Yeah.
But I think Decker is pretty much resigned to die at this point. I think he kind of feels like he deserves to die.
Yeah. And it goes back to showing how different personality types might be affected by the loss of that many lives under their command.
Most definitely.
But I mean, you can't really ever picture Kirk in that kind of mental state.
Yeah, I guess not. I mean, like I'm thinking back to The Enemy Within, where you see the good side of him kind of wimping out.
Yeah.
So
I mean, for me, it almost seems like this is an episode that really showcases what made Kirk so great and, how he eventually clawed his way up to admiral status.
Yes, definitely. So the total bravery that he exhibits in this.
Yeah, and the look on his face, on Wyndon's face there as he meets his final moments is some great stuff.
Yeah, he really, and they must have a little fan blowing or something because his hair is kind of moving around there.
But there was almost the last time we saw him before this, there was almost like a moment of euphoria.
Yeah.
That turned into horror, but
Yeah. Another great musical piece there too. Just another score piece, kind of that high tension music as Decker is entering into the mouth of the machine and eventually dying. But yeah, another repeat flyby. It's almost like the episode started over.
Yeah.
Oops, I have to check my player.
And here's Kirk sort of, I guess, processing the reality that they've lost Decker.
Yeah, and interesting. Spock offers condolences.
Yeah,
that's kind of an emotional thing for him to do, or maybe he's just trying to do as expected.
Yeah, I think he sort of referenced human protocol for how we deal with death.
He's being sensitive.
Yeah,
but Sulu has noticed that there's a power dip. And like Spock comes over to look into the little apparatus to check Sulu's readings. Like, get out of here, man. You don't know what you're talking about. So object is still coming after them, but good shot there, though. I love the shot where you can see Palmer in the background talking, but you get a nice shot of Sulu and Spock kind of talking through this thing with Kirk.
Yeah, the composition is really good, and Daniels had that background where he was basically there for the birth of TV, and doing the pioneering work he did on I Love Lucy and stuff. So it is cool to see that some of the composition that's still used to this day. Mm-hmm. You're seeing like the textbook use of it, which is really, really cool. And it's a 4x3 square image where nowadays people have these widescreen images to play with, but Daniels is still able to squeeze a lot into those frames.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a lot of really great subtle camera work and things like they're slowly tightening in on Kirk as he's talking about this. It's kind of gives you that extra sense of drama.
Oh yeah,
a lot of really great stuff.
Yeah, it's really an amazing thing when you have that moment where you're aware that everything that you're watching is a choice.
Yep.
And I remember cinematically that happened for me when I saw Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. I was aware of, directors and all that prior to that, but that was a movie where I finally put together that, wow, somebody actually sat down and looked at a script and figured out how they were going to shoot that.
Exactly.
And that's a great moment when you can sort of still get caught up in the story of a movie or a TV show, but at the same time appreciate the artistry behind it.
Absolutely. And that's one of the great things about watching these episodes over, as I've seen them so many times, but as I'm watching them for our show, I watch them with a different set of eyes.
Oh yeah.
So I look for things like that impress me, and instead of just watching for the story, I'm listening to the use of music. I'm looking at the use of lighting and color, mm-hmm. and composition choices and camera movements, and it gives me a completely different appreciation of the show and how cinematic it really was.
Yeah.
There's a lot of effort put into that stuff. So Kirk has the setup here. He's going to build up the impulse engine to an explosion, which I thought was kind of interesting that it's in Scotty's wheelhouse to rig up exploding engine switches.
Yeah.
He wires it up to this little red switch in that console. He said, all right, this is the one. I've run the wiring.
I love the physical acting he did there where he really, in an animated way, with his arms, showed, sold the idea of an explosion.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Scotty doesn't even try to dissuade Kirk from doing this.
Yeah, he knows it would be a useless, waste of time.
Yeah, he says, you know what, the transporter is a flaky thing to risk your life on, and that's as far as I'm going to go. I'm not going to tell you not to. I'm not going to try to make you come back with me. You know what? I know who you are. I know what you're doing, and you're my captain. I respect you, and I'm going back to the Enterprise, man.
Yeah, take and we'll get into this a little bit in our post episode discussion. So I don't want to repeat myself here, but it's really great to see the faith that Kirk shows in his crew.
Absolutely.
And it's not even like it seems like it's even more than faith. It's almost like he operates with the knowledge that they're going to pull through for him. Absolutely.
Total trust.
Yeah.
And it shows in his confidence and fearlessness. I mean, just standing there knowing that he's moments away.
Yeah.
And of course, the transporter is blowing out again. So we have even more tension building
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think it sort of elevates or is an incredible confidence booster for his crew at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know that if my boss has that kind of confidence in me, it empowers me to do even more.
Yeah.
So they've got to feel like, all right, you know what? Captain Kirk totally has 100% faith in us, and we're going to come through for him because I don't want to lose that.
Yeah.
So you got the genius of Spock and the genius of Scotty both working overtime so that they don't fall short. Is Sulu sweating?
It looks like it a little bit, yeah.
They gave him the mister. Mm-hmm. Give him a little shot of the mister there. So
and I love the idea of Sulu referenced at one point that they were 500 miles away, and it just really sort of sells the vastness of space.
Yeah, and the enormity of the Doomsday Machine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the transporters have blown out again.
Yeah.
So now we've got less than 30 seconds to fix the transporter. So Scotty has to work his most incredible magic in the shortest span of time. 20 seconds Scotty has.
Yeah, and this is some nail-biting stuff, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is pretty much the closest they can possibly call it.
Yeah.
They could have easily done like you got 5 minutes left. You know, and had Scotty have 5 minutes to fix it, but 20 seconds?
Yeah, and here's that great sort of Scotty, Kirk, or Spock, tag teaming you were talking about, where Spock tells him to try and use inverse phasing.
Yeah, I love it. Spock knows better.
Yeah,
Scotty goes. And now we get the actual countdown. And I love how Scotty has to use the communicator on the wall instead of just using a hand communicator up in the tube. He has to jump down first. And we don't know. We don't know if they're going to get Kirk out in time or not.
No.
Now we're seeing the ship flying in, and I don't know. And we're seeing the ship, we're seeing the explosion before we're seeing Kirk come back to the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
And I love the blue light that sort of emanated from the Doomsday Machine.
Yeah, nice explosion there. Not like a red and yellow and orange one that we're used to.
The blue light was really a great visual.
Now I have a serious question for you.
Oh, I love serious questions.
This is something that occurred to me. So you see the Doomsday Machine now is kind of just starting to slowly fall. Now, is it just going to keep falling for all eternity until it hits something? What if it falls and hits a planet?
Yeah, but I mean, really, there's really no up and down in space.
Sure there is. It's not two-dimensional. There's a z-axis. Just like we can go up in the air, it can go down too.
Yeah,
it's going to eventually hit something.
I don't know, man. Space is pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, stands to reason if it's going to keep falling and falling. I mean, maybe by the time Janeway makes it to the Alpha Quadrant, that thing could have taken out a planet.
Would it start to break up in a planet's atmosphere?
I doubt it. It's solid neutronium, right?
Yeah. They
can't even blow it apart with phasers.
I don't have an answer, sir.
Oh man. Anybody out there has an answer for that one? I'm going to stick my head out the window and look up and see if a big giant poop is falling from the sky, about to take out the Earth. That could do some serious damage, man. I think it's gigantic.
Man. So here we have Kirk with his H-bomb analogy.
Yep.
Really, sort of selling it for people that might not have, caught on to the allegory at the time.
Yep. And that about wraps it up.
Wow. Yeah. Another super quick episode, in my opinion. I mean, it feels like we just sat down to start.
Yep. And it's already over and time for our essential voting.
You want me to go?
Absolutely.
All right. I think based on the tone throughout, that I am going to vote essential on this one. And some of the, criteria I used was, of course, the cocktail party rule, which doesn't even need to come into effect here. But this is one of those episodes that, depending on who you talk to, will rate this in their top 10, their top 5, their top 3. You have some incredible character moments from McCoy, from Spock, from Kirk, for Scotty, and you get to see a nice sort of difference between how captains would react between how Kirk handles the situation versus Decker. So I think all that stuff really sort of, you roll that up and you get an essential episode.
Yeah, I agree that it is essential, and I will only add a couple of small footnotes to what you already stated, just to reinforce some things. I think there's some heavy use of Starfleet regulations in this episode, so you get a feel for the depth and breadth of the rules that these guys have to operate under. So I think it was really cool to see Spock rattling off regulations, and we're going to see that comes up in the movies a lot, and it's going to come up moving forward in other series. So if you move on to Next Generation and things, they're always talking about Starfleet regulations X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool to see the military hierarchy and how, Decker can just assume command of the Enterprise. So you've got a superior officer on the ship, and he says, all right, it's my choice now to take over this ship from you, as Kirk will do in a couple of the Star Trek movies, right? He kind of comes onto the ship and like, oh, hey, we're in a tough spot here, and as the superior officer on board, I'm assuming command, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So you kind of have that mechanic set up where the superior officer, even if he's not quote unquote technically the commander of the ship, it's his prerogative whether or not he wants to take over from the other normal captain of the Enterprise or the captain of the ship. Mm-hmm. So cool stuff. Definitely an essential episode. And,
great. And we are not done.
No, we definitely are not done. So our friend Vernon Wilmer is going to come back on now that we're done with our commentary, and he's going to offer his opinions on the Doomsday Machine. So here we go with Vernon Wilmer. So Vernon, this is your favorite Star Trek The Original Series episode. Can you tell us a little bit about why that is?
First of all, it is action-wise, it's the best, I believe, adventure episode, but it's got a lot of psychology in it. You've got William Wyndham, who is one of the only guest stars in the series that can act up against William Shatner. You've got the unstoppable threat, almost a Borg-style threat, the Juggernaut, which is the Doomsday Machine. And Saul Kaplan's music, I think, is with Amok Time, is amongst the two standout scores of the entire series. Less than half the episodes had original scores. Most of them were tracked from other episodes. And Saul Kaplan did a magnificent score. I think it was reused in the Immunity Syndrome later.
I agree. The music, the score for this episode is spectacular, especially the high drama scenes with Decker flying into the mouth of the machine itself. There's a very kind of a famous piece of music there that plays. It's very, very cool, very, very tense.
Absolutely. And as far as the remastered episodes go, that's the one I'm always the most excited to see. That's the one with the biggest payoff, I believe, of effect sequences.
Yeah, I think I read there were over 100 redone effects for the remastered version.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Sounds about right.
The constellation looked amazing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think in the original episode, if I remember correctly, they actually ran out. AMT Enterprise models were already on the market at that time. And they went out and bought one and burned it up with a lighter, and that was the constellation.
Yeah, I had read that too. So, interesting thing that I learned about this episode that I didn't know before, and this is a kind of a interesting bookend to this being your favorite episode, Vernon, is that one of the original cast stars shares that sentiment, and that's James Doohan. He said multiple times that this is his favorite episode, but in stark contrast to that, this is DC Fontana's least favorite episode. Oh. So is that weird?
Well, DC, Dorothy likes to go where the mind is and likes the drama. She's a fantastic writer, did some of the best episodes, not of the original series, the animated series, the pilot episode of TNG. I could understand her distaste for the episode because it's pretty much pure adventure. And I think it's a guy episode. It's not a girl episode. It's a guy's episode.
Yeah, you're probably right on that. Yeah, a lot of cool space combat type scenes with the ships flying around and shooting. You don't see that much in the original series, actually.
Yeah, and the acting and some of the most quotable lines. Oh. And you've got Washburn, who was oh boy, see if I get his name right. He was named for Charles Washburn, so second unit director for Star Trek, the original series, and some of TNG. And that gentleman passed away a few years ago. He was the first African-American graduate of is it the DGA, the Directors Guild?
That sounds right.
Yeah. So that was a nod to him, having a character named Washburn.
Oh, excellent.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, picking up all kinds of little extra facts about this episode.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, I got a ton of them. I know every frame of that episode. I love it.
So, I was thinking about some other fun side topics for this episode, and the conversations about the reboots and things being redone. And I was thinking a common thread in a lot of our discussions between Craig and I is, what would this show have been like, or this episode have been like if it were made today, as opposed to being made in the late 60s. And I'm trying to think about things that would have been different about the episode. And I thought back to kind of, where they were with the Changeling, and I thought to myself, what would it have been like if Spock had put on a spacesuit and tried to mind meld with the Doomsday Machine?
Yikes. Well, assuming you get past the big energy discharge and actually reach the thing,
yeah, because
I would imagine, it would be something similar to what we saw in the motion picture, just overwhelming information download there.
Yeah, so something I was surprised that they didn't try, because obviously he's got the capability to mind meld with machines. So I thought that would have been a funny scene to have him flying out, kind of like he did with V'ger, and kind of stuck on the side of the machine. What do you think about that, Craig?
And again,
I love it anytime that Spock does any kind of mind melding, so I'm all for it.
Rocks, pieces of pizza, Nazis, robots,
whales.
Everything.
Whales. That's a good. I forgot about the whales. All kinds of robots. Oh, that's great. What else I was thinking about was, this episode puts out the theory that, no weapon, that Starfleet had in its possession was able to do any damage to this thing, aside from
through solid neutronium. No.
Right. So what I was thinking was, we saw in season 1 that the Romulans had developed a pretty powerful planet-destroying weapon in the Balance of Terror episode they were using to destroy, Starfleet outposts. Do you think that weapon would have been powerful enough?
Well, A, you'd have to get the Romulans to agree to attack the thing, but B, the Doomsday Machine was made of solid neutronium. And the outposts that the Romulans were destroying, oh boy, Casperginium?
Wow.
Which is the hardest, at the time, Spock said, the hardest substance known to man, which, of course, later changed in the episode. Oh boy, give me a second here. Obsession, I think, where they were collecting rock samples.
Ah, yes.
That's pushing my brain too far. I don't remember the name of that substance.
Well, that's a pretty impressive knowledge once again, I gotta say. So,
thanks.
Craig, any thoughts on the possibilities of this Romulan weapon maybe having an effect?
Not anything beyond what you guys have mentioned. I hadn't really put too much thought in that. That's a good catch on your part, Jeff.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of other things. You have anything that you want to pose about this episode, Craig?
Yeah, one of the things that I really liked in this episode is when we get right down to the wire, the faith that Kirk shows in his crew, which he's done a lot, but here he really, really is completely dependent on Scotty coming through in what is potentially an impossible situation. And the fact that he keeps calm while he's telling them that it's time to beam him up really, really speaks volume to his character and his faith in Scotty's ability, which I always love to see.
I completely agree with that statement. And I love hearing people's favorite moments of episodes. And as you were talking about that, I was picturing that moment in my mind. And it is pretty cool how, Kirk's on this dying hulk of a ship, right? He's pretty much hopeless over there, and he's relying completely on the genius of Scotty and the rest of the crew to get him out. You have any thoughts on that one, Vernon?
Again, it's a great episode for characters. Everybody who, all the main cast except for Uhura, of course, not in that episode, comes through for Kirk for the situation. Everybody's got an integral part in the plot. There's even that red shirt who gets in the fight with William Wyndham, have that kind of James Cagney fist fight in the hallway. And he doesn't die. He just gets knocked out. And I've always wondered, why do we have Lieutenant Palmer in that episode instead of Nichelle Nichols? I wonder if that's when she was considering leaving the show and her mind was changed by Dr. King, or if she was just out sick or on vacation or what. I've never heard why.
Yeah, it almost would have made sense if they had flipped and produced that episode closer to the episode where Uhura basically has her mind erased and needs to relearn how to do everything. And it would have been easily explained that she was off in third grade catching up.
That would have made for some humor, though. The ball is bluey. The Doomsday Machine could have shown up, and she would have been like, the Monster Enterprise.
That's a really good idea. That was an excellent point. Yet another nod to the lack of continuity in a lot of these episodes.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought we were at the point where the cast was pretty stable.
Oh, yeah. It was second season. It was middle of the second season. And Star Trek had come into its own, hadn't come down to that third season quality level. I think it's the peak of the series, in my opinion.
Yeah, as a friend of the show, Steve says, Doomsday Machine is the last good episode.
Wow.
That's what he says. I don't agree with that, but that's what he says.
Well, they tracked a lot of the story and the music over to the episode Immunity Syndrome, which, even though it's kind of hackneyed off of Doomsday Machine, I think is still a fantastic episode. There's some kind of expanded universe tie-ins, too. Like, I don't know how substantiated it is, but that thing was created by someone trying to defeat the Borg, and it wandered into our part of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a cool notion.
Another interesting notion, another thing that I didn't really know about this was that in the novelization of the motion picture, Decker in the motion picture is actually the son of Commodore Decker from the Doomsday Machine.
Yeah, I think it even goes into, I think, him recommending Decker for the Enterprise captaincy because of he felt he owed him after Matt Decker's death.
Hmm.
I think that one is pretty well canon substantial.
Yeah, it seemed like it made sense. I think there was a lot of things that had gotten kind of lost or muddy between the original series and what was intended to be in Phase 2 and what did and didn't make it into the motion picture from Phase 2. So I guess to get all of that canon, you actually have to read some of the books and read some of the unused stuff that's floating around out there.
Yeah, and there's also an entire book that came out a couple of years ago called Star Trek Phase 2 that details the entire development of that series, and it includes early scripts, drawings, all kinds of cool stuff. And I remember getting it quite a few years ago, and that's a book I look forward to talking about once we get closer to that era of Star Trek.
That's a wonderful book. That era of Star Trek is history is amongst the most compelling. I mean, to see what could have been but didn't become. And also The Art of Star Trek. That's another book that has a substantial amount of Phase 2 material in it. And if you have Star Trek the Motion Picture, the 2-disc DVD director's cut,
yes,
you can see some footage. There's a whole hour-long special on Phase 2 in the bonus features.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I had gotten that DVD so long ago that I had forgotten about that. That's awesome.
There's a cornucopia of bonus material on that disc. It's beautiful. There's even a coming soon promo of Star Trek Enterprise on it.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Paramount did a tremendous job with all of the Star Trek movies when they were issued or reissued on DVD and collector's edition versions.
I agree on most of them, but I think they dropped the ball on 3 and 4. because Star Trek 3 has a ton of excised footage. In fact, Nimoy back in '86 was given the green light to go ahead and make a television cut, like Mick Meyer got to do for Rapicon.
Yeah.
And that got canceled because of the football strike in '86. They bumped up the network airing of Star Trek 3 and not only showed only the theatrical version, but that was cut down for time.
Oh, boo.
And so when this dual disc edition came out of Star Trek 3 back in, I want to say 2005 or so, 2004, it had none of that. It's still lost out there. It hasn't appeared on anything. And Star Trek 4, it has a lot of cool stuff in the bonus features, but it doesn't even have Nimoy's featurette that appeared on the video cassette.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about that, Vernon, is you'd think that Star Trek fans are seemingly just as anxious to spend their money on Star Trek stuff as other, movie fans of other series would do. So it amazes me that Paramount, CBS, any other Star Trek license, rights holders don't sort of, quote unquote, take advantage of the fans a little bit more.
Absolutely. I'm sure 9 times out of 10, it's a licensing issue.
Yeah. That's very cool. Maybe, hopefully, when we get to the movie portion of this series, after we burn our way through a lot of other material, we'd love to have you on for some episodes to talk about some of the missing stuff from those movies.
Oh, totally. That would be a lot of fun.
Nice. Excellent. And I hope we have you on a bunch of times before that, but I'd like to lock you in for those.
Sure, I'll be available.
Very cool.
Excellent.
So any closing thoughts on Doomsday Machine?
I think I went through everything, all my thoughts on it. What it all adds up to is it's just the coolest episode, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It's very high on my list as well. Craig, where does it fall on yours?
For a very, very long time, this was my favorite episode as well. I remember, and I've told this story before, where in college I lived with my grandfather instead of staying on campus. And we had basic cable. And on Sunday nights, WPIX here in the New York, New Jersey area would show the original series. And I remember hoping that my grandfather fell asleep in his rocking chair before Star Trek came on so I could watch Star Trek, because he would normally tune to something else. And I remember one of my greatest memories from all of those times that I watched Star Trek, trying not to make noise and wake my grandfather up, was watching the Doomsday Machine episode and hoping that would come on, months later. I'd say, okay, it's been far enough between airings that they could probably show the Doomsday Machine again.
That's a good memory. I remember seeing this episode when I was a kid too, and back in syndication, and probably on the same WPIX channels that you watched, Craig, because I was kind of in central Jersey out on the shore. So I think it was probably the same channels. I think channel 11.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up, it also was one of my favorite episodes. And I think for a time it may have been my favorite episode, but it's still definitely in my top 5.
Oh, yeah, it couldn't not be on any top 5 list.
Except for DC Fontaine.
Yeah. Except we'll allow her that because she's so awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. So, anything else, Craig?
No, I just want to thank you, Vernon, for taking the time out to come on and talk about your favorite episode with us, and for also giving us the my experience updates earlier.
My pleasure. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, of course. And we'll continue to plug my experience and the experience itself on our show. We've been evangelizing it for a long time, so we'll keep plugging it for you.
It's appreciated. Thank you.
Great, and we'll see you in Vegas.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I will be there.
Very cool, man. Take it easy. And that about wraps it up for another episode of the Tricorder Transmissions. Thanks again for listening, everybody. You can catch us on Facebook at the Tricorder Transmissions, or on Twitter at TTT_pod, and on our own website at thetricordertransmissions.com. Thanks a lot for listening. We'll see you next week.
Captain Ahab's pursuit of the elusive white whale, Moby Dick, was an obsession that cost him his leg, his ship, and eventually his life and the lives of most of his crew. Commodore Decker's pursuit of the Doomsday Machine is drawn directly from the Herman Melville classic. It's not the last time that Star Trek would draw inspiration from this literary work. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, drew heavily from Moby Dick in many ways. Khan's obsession would prove as deadly as both Ahab's and Commodore Decker.
Obsession and guilt, a fatal combination. It's not hard to imagine James Kirk in the same situation as Decker. An explorer on a mission of discovery is always in a high-risk situation where anything can happen. It's where the slightest error in judgment can be deadly. Knowledge comes at a high price, one that Commodore Decker was forced to pay.